Hey everyone, so we will continue our lecture, chapter 22. So, prokaryotes, bacteria, and archaea. In the previous lecture, we have learned that there are two types of organisms based on nucleus, prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Prokaryotes are organisms that do not have nucleus. And also, we have learned that there are two types of organisms based on the cell numbers. Unicellular organism or single cell organism and multicellular organism. So prokaryotes, they are uh, unicellular organism. They are single cell organism. Therefore, they are very small. And then we also learned that early belief, they believe that organisms is actually coming from non-living material. So this theory is called the abiogenesis. Remember, A mean no, bio mean living, so non-living. Genesis mean creation. So creations of living things come from non-living things. So this is also known as a spontaneous generation, which is not true. Okay, so Louis Pasteur, he actually did not believe that theory. He said that life comes from life, and this theory is called the biogenesis. So this is a typo over here. It has to be biogenesis theory, which is the opposite of this abiogenesis theory. So Louis Pasteur believed that the infectious disease that present on at that time is actually caused by germ. Okay, so this theory is called the germ theory. So he said that infectious disease is caused by germ or pathogenic microorganism. So the organism that is very small, we cannot see them. Okay, and this can cause some infectious disease. And also for the information, the microscope is actually found by Anthony van Leeuwenhoek. So he was also known as the father of microscopy, and he created the first microscope to see small thing. He actually used it to see the cork. So cork is actually made of plants. So he saw dead cells, okay, under his microscope. Now, we go back to this germ theory. So germ theory said, again, infectious disease is caused by germ. Louis Pasteur unable to prove that because he did not have the ability to prove it, and also he did not have the microscope at that time. Okay? So the next scientist, his name is Robert Koch, is actually the one that confirmed this germ theory by performing experiment using what we call the Koch postulate. So he created stages or the steps to prove the germ theory. And this step is called the Koch postulate. Now, Robert Koch over here, yes, he studied anthrax, which is a very dangerous disease, especially if this infecting the lungs. And this disease is caused by bacteria is called Bacillus anthracis. So he want to prove that this disease, which is the anthrax, is caused by microorganism, the Bacillus anthracis. So he performed this experiment using his postulate, so the Koch postulate. First, he said that the microorganism that causing disease should be present in the person that have the disease, but absent from healthy individual. Okay, so the one that have disease will have this microorganism. So he take that. So the second step is actually he take that sample from the person that have the disease and then put it in the culture media. So he make what we call the pure culture of this Bacillus anthracis in his laboratory. And then he used that. Okay, he used that. The next step is using that culture to infect a healthy host. In this case, he used an animal for his experiment. And then what happened? The animal is actually have the disease, have the same disease like the person that have this anthrax disease. And then he also isolate that microorganism from the animal that have disease and then culture it again. So isolate it and culture it again in his laboratory and identify that the microorganism is actually the same as microorganism that present in the person that have disease, and also the same like the first culture over here. So this is proving that the anthrax is caused by germ, which is Bacillus anthracis. So this is the Koch postulate to prove the germ theory. Again, germ theory was promoted by Louis Pasteur and Robert Koch. Proof that the germ theory was correct using his postulate. It's called the Koch postulate. Okay, now there is a very interesting story over here. A doctor from Australia, his name is Barry Marshall. He discovered that peptic ulcer is actually caused by bacteria. It's called the Helicobacter pylori. So before his research, okay, most people or most doctors believe that peptic ulcer is caused by acidity, or acid contents in the stomach. But Barry Marshall did not believe that. So he used postulate, okay, the Koch postulate, to prove his theory. He using animal on the first experiment that it not happening. It means that the animal stay healthy. So he also believed that this Helicobacter maybe is very special for human only. Therefore, he tried to find persons that want to be the guinea pig for his experiment, but nobody wanted. But actually, what happened? He using himself. He using himself as the subject of the experiment. So he actually swallowing the bacteria. And what happened? He had the disease. He had the peptic ulcer. And then from here, he, believed that the germ that causing the peptic ulcer is actually bacteria. It's called the Helicobacter pylori. And because of his research or experiment, no many doctor believe that peptic ulcer is caused by Helicobacter pylori, which is bacteria. So mostly doctor will give the prescription or antibiotics to treat the disease. Before that, the doctor usually say this is just, acidity in the stomach. So this is very important, one of the important finding by Barry Marshall that use himself as the subject or the object of the experiment. Okay, so uh, there are two technology that make us able to study the microbes better, which is microscopy. Again, the father of microscopy is Anthony van Leeuwenhoek, and then infectious disease investigation. So this is a technology that we have now that really help us to be healthy, to protect us against infectious disease or to cure from infectious disease. So this is Anthony van Leeuwenhoek, and this is the first microscope that he created. It's very simple, okay? Very simple microscope, only one optic lens over here. And now we have double lens, the ocular lenses, okay, for seeing the microorganism. This is Louis Pasteur. Again, he was the one that proposed the germ theory, infectious disease caused by germ or microorganism. And this is Koch, Robert Koch. He is the one that created Koch postulate, which is step to prove the germ theory. And this step is not is now is using by many scientists or doctors to prove some infectious disease. Now again, so we go back to the prokaryote itself. Prokaryote are unicellular. Okay, so they are unicellular, very small. They are very simple, don't have nucleus. They are abundant for over a billion years before the eukaryote evolution. And then 90 to 90% is actually unknown. So there are so many microbes that still unidentified. And just for information, most of them are actually beneficial. They are actually helping us, like they are decomposer. Right? They are decomposing the dead materials. Without them, this world may be filled with the trash. Okay? Only less than 1% actually causing the disease, but because this is a bad, so many people actually learns this microorganism or the pathogenic microorganism. And there are two domains for this one. And again, we already learned this, which is domain bacteria and domain archaea. Okay, bacteria is also known as eubacteria, and archaea, they are actually extremophils. Remember, phil mean love, extreme mean extreme. So they actually live in the extreme environment. Most of them are free living. So the one that causing disease mostly in the group of bacteria, in the domain of bacteria. This is example of archaea that live in the hot spring water. So because they live or love hot condition, their name is thermophil, love of temperature, hot temperature. So this is example of archaea. Another example is the one that live in the Dead Sea. If you know, the Dead Sea is actually very salty, okay, very salty. And this archaea that live in the salty environment is also known as halophil. Halo mean salty, right, or osmotic pressure, and phil mean love. So this is the one that love to live in salty environment. Now, this is just a comparison, a simple comparison between bacteria and archaea. So there is a universal ancestor, okay, that's the first cell. And this first cells then evolve into different cell, okay? And then the oldest one is domain bacteria, and then evolve into some of them into domain archaea, okay, over here, and then also evolve into eukarya, including, plant, animal, fungi, protists, here in the domain of eukarya. Okay, so prokaryote, they are unicellular, a single cell organism. Some of them able to form the colony, but colony is not a tissue. This is just cell that, group together. But every cell or each cell able to perform their own metabolism, their own reproduction. This is what we call the colony. So they are actually unicellular. Most of them, majority of them are unicellular. They are very small. Remember, cells are very small. They are smaller than eukaryotic cell. It's very, very small. So they are in the, if we measure them, it is in the micrometer, which is 1,000 less than 1 millimeter. So we can maybe see organisms that have 1 millimeter size, maybe just very small ant, for example, or just a dot, but we cannot see the micrometer organism, including the bacteria over here. And remember, we learned virus before. Viruses is in nanometer, even very, very small. It gets smaller than the cell itself because virus is just a molecule. And then prokaryotic chromosome is a single circular double-stranded DNA. So they are maybe like this, double-stranded chromosome. Okay, so they are circular. Uh, Often they also have another or additional circular DNA that is smaller. It's called the plasmid. So they have additional DNA. Some of them is called plasmid. The cell division or reproduction, they use what we call the binary fission. So one cell, yeah, let's say this is one cell, then reproduce into two cell, okay, and these two cells reproduce into four cell, 4 into 8, etc. So this is what we call the binary fission. Binary mean two, fission mean split. Okay. They don't have sexual reproductions, therefore they have that binary fission. But some of them are able to perform conjugation, which is transferring DNA from one organism, from one bacteria to another bacteria, but it is not sexual reproduction. Okay, again, it's not sexual reproduction. Internal compartments, they don't have nucleus, because this is prokaryote. They don't have organelle except ribosome. So they have ribosome. And ribosome is organelle used for making protein. The ribosome are smaller. It's a size, it's called the 70S SIF. Compared to the eukaryotic ribosome, it is a bigger 90S. Again, no internal compartment, no other organelles. They have some of them, okay, some of them, especially the one that look like a rod, like this bacteria that look like a rod, they have tail. That tail is called the flagella, and it is used for movement. So they can move using this uh, flagella. It's very simple structure. The way they move it by rotating this flagella. So the flagella actually rotate, okay, to move. Some eukaryote, okay, like a protista, especially the protozoa, they also have flagella. Okay, let's say this is protozoa. Okay, they have flagella, but the way they move flagella is by whipping this. Okay, just whipping the flagella. So that's the difference between flagella of bacteria and the flagella of eukarya. Uh, for metabolism, they are heterotrophic. So, hetero mean others, other, trophic mean food. This is food. This is other. So what does that mean? It means that they cannot make their own food. So they're unable to perform photosynthesis. So they have to take the food from other. Okay? The reason why many of them is actually parasite. They take the food from the host cell. Some of them photosynthetic is very, very few of them able to perform photosynthesis. Classifications, there are some uh, characters that usually used for qualifications, like for example, whether it is photosynthetic or non-photosynthetic bacteria. And again, mostly they are non-photosynthetic bacteria. They are heterotrophic. whether it's motile or non-motile, whether they can move or not, whether they have unicellular or some of them able to perform colony, making a colony, or maybe colony that look like filament, is filamentous bacteria. So unicellular like this, colony maybe like that. So they group together. And filamentous is just long, okay, cell like this. Formation of spore. Some of them able to produce spore, endospore, like anthrax, for example. And the way they divide, with this binary fission, and they're important as a human pathogens or not. So this is some of characteristic that's usually used for classification. And again, it's very difficult actually to classify them because they are very, very small. The classic classification is use what we call the Burgess Manual of Systematic Bacteriology. So this book is actually lists the classification of bacteria. So if you take microbiology, maybe you learn this classification. But in this class, we will not really talk about this classification. Okay, so this is again some things that usually used for classification. Now, the structure of bacteria. Uh, this is a kind of typical structure of bacteria. Of course, bacteria, because this is cell, it will have cell membrane. So cell membrane present in all organisms, including prokaryote bacteria. Bacteria mostly have cell wall. This is additional structure, cell wall. And some also have additional layer outside the cell wall. It's called the capsule. So some have capsule, but not all. Not all bacteria have capsule, but some of them have capsule. Now, outside, this is what we call the external structure. They have some additional structure. It's called the fimbriae. It look like hair. So fimbriae mean hair-like structure. Okay. And this fimbriae usually used for attachment. So fimbriae used for attachment. There is another hair structure, a little bit rigid. It's called the pilus. So pilus is actually coming from inside like this, while the fimbriae is just on the cell wall or maybe on the capsule. So this is a pilus over here, and this pilus is actually look like a bridge that able to be used as the bridge for transferring the DNA. So pilus is used for conjugation, transferring the DNA from one or chromosome from one organism, from one bacteria to another bacteria. Okay, so inside, this is cytoplasm. Remember, all cell will have cytoplasm. In the cytoplasm, of course, there is a chromosome, right, which is DNA. And this is circular DNA, actually, circular chromosome. They also have the ribosome. This is the only organelle inside the bacteria used for making proteins. And some of them have flagellum, the structure for movement. Some of them, not all of them. Usually the bacteria that look like round like this, they don't have the flagella. Also the bacteria that look like spiral like this, they don't have flagella. So the one that have flagella, usually only the one that look like a rod bacteria. Okay. Okay, based on the shape. So I just mentioned several shape of bacteria. Yeah. First, there are round or spear bacteria. Scientific term used for this is called coccus. So coccus bacteria. Sometimes the name of bacteria based on the shape. Yeah, you have Staphylococcus, Streptococcus, for example. And then another one is Bacillus. It look like a rod. Okay. There is a Bacillus anthracis, for example, or Streptobacillus bacteria. Uh, and then the last one is the one that look like spiral. It's called the spirillum bacteria. So this is how it look like under the electron microscope. Okay, so this is under electron microscope. This is the coccus bacteria. There are two of these bacteria combined together. And this is the one that look like a rod. So this is Bacillus bacteria. And this is the one that look like a spiral. This is a spirillum bacteria. So there are three main bacterial shape: coccus, bacillus, and spirillum. Now, they can also make arrangement. So this is a colony. So they can create colony. Maybe single. Single. If it is single, we just call it coccus, for example, or bacillus. Depend on the shape. Coccus or maybe bacillus or spirillum. Most of the spirillum is actually single bacteria. Diplo mean two. So maybe you have round or bacillus, okay, bind together like this. This is diplo. This is diplo over here. If it is coccus, then it's going to be diplococcus. If it is bacillus like this, then it's going to be diplobacillus. Chains-like, it means strepto. So it is a strain-like structure, is strepto. If it is round like this, then it's going to be just adding coccus after strepto. So this is streptococcus. If it is rod like this, making a chain structure, then it's going to be streptobacillus. Streptobacillus. So we have streptococcus or streptobacillus. Or irregular cluster, like a grape structure like this. Okay, so this one is called a staphylo. Staphylo mean cluster. Okay? Mostly only in the coccus shape that have staphylo. So therefore it's called a staphylococcus. Okay, staphylococcus bacteria over here. There are no staphylobacillus, usually staphylococcus. Okay, now we go back to the major group. Again, there are two domains, archaea and bacteria. And again, archaea, they are extreme bacteria, extremophiles. They live in the extreme environment. And bacteria, this is eubacteria. This is the real bacteria that many of them free living, but some of them can cause disease. They are pathogenic bacteria. And these are the phylum that usually used for classification for this eubacteria. Again, we will not really talk about this classification. We just go to some example of them. Now, again, bacteria have the cell wall. Bacteria have the cell wall. So based on the cell wall, there are two types of bacteria, which is gram-positive bacteria and gram-negative bacteria. The gram-positive bacteria, they have thicker cell wall. So their cell wall is called the peptidoglycan. So they have thicker peptidoglycan or thicker cell wall. The gram negative, which is this over here, they have thinner cell wall, thinner peptidoglycan. In addition of the cell wall, they also have additional outer membrane, mostly made of lipids and protein. Okay, lipid and protein. So they have additional layer outside the cell wall. Okay, so mostly this gram-negative bacteria is more difficult to kill or to destroy compared to the gram-positive bacteria because they have this additional layer that make them have the additional protections against some medicine or antibiotics. So based on this gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria, usually, doctors give you different prescription, like penicillin, for example, mostly used for gram-positive bacteria like Streptococcus, yeah, the one that causing strep throat. Okay, now the cell wall. Again, the cell wall. We're going to learn the structure of bacteria. Start from the cell wall. The cell wall, again, consists of peptidoglycan. So this is the name of the molecules that make the cell wall of bacteria. Okay, just for your comparison, plant also have, a cell wall, but their cell wall made of cellulose, so different molecules. Okay, so bacteria have cell wall made of peptidoglycan, which is consists of peptide over here, which is protein, and glycan is sugar. So it actually consists of sugar and protein. Again, there are two type of bacteria, yeah, based on the cell wall is gram positive and gram negative. So if you take microbiology class, you will actually learn how to identify gram positive bacteria and gram negative bacteria in the laboratory. Again, gram positive has thicker cell wall or thicker peptidoglycan. Gram negative have less or thinner cell wall or thinner peptidoglycan, but they have additional outer layer. This is actually the experiment that you perform in the laboratory to identify whether bacteria is gram positive or gram negative. Usually, if you do or you perform this experiment, you will be able to see the difference. The gram positive bacteria will be blue, okay, will be blue if you see under the microscope after this staining procedure. And then the gram-negative bacteria will be red in color under the microscope after you perform this step over here. Okay, so this is just for your information. This is the identification of gram-positive or gram-negative bacteria from your sample. Okay, there is another additional structure outside the cell wall. Some of them have slime layer, okay? Some of them have capsule. What is the difference? Capsule is thicker and harder. The slime layer is thinner, it's just like a slimy. It's not really a rigid structure. So some bacteria, let's say this is bacteria, cell wall, okay? Let's say this is a flagella. If it is a capsule, then it's going to be very rigid structure. If it is slime layer, then it's going to be slimy, okay, structure like that. So there's a difference between slime layer and capsule. Some bacteria have capsule, some have slime layer. Flagella, again, mostly the bacillus bacteria that have flagella, yeah, composed of protein called the flagellin. So they are spinning, they are rotating this to move. Again, mostly found in the bacillus type of bacteria. And we already mentioned pili and fibriae. Let's say this is bacteria. If it is pili, I mean fibriae, it look like hair structure like this, and this is used for attachment. If it is pili, usually coming from inside, and it's more rigid, it's used for transferring the DNA or chromosome. So that's the difference between fimbriae and pili. Under microscope, they maybe look very similar. Endospore. There are some bacteria that are able to produce endospore. Usually you can see this structure over here. So this is the endospore over here. Okay. Endospore. If they're able to produce endospore, they're actually able to stands against like a boiling, for example. So they are very resistant against distraction, like for boiling. So like anthrax, for example, they're able to stand against boiling. So if you boil the bacteria, they will not die because they creating this endospore. When the condition is better, then they can reproduce or replicate again. Okay, so this is highly resistant the environmental stress, including boiling, drying, and any other extreme condition. So they can stay dormant on that endospore for long period of time, even million years. So there are some bacteria, the endospore of bacteria that found has been stay in the endospore form for a million years. Again, nucleolid region, this is when this is in the cytoplasm. This is actually the chromosomes. Again, they might also contain plasmid. Okay, usually if the bacteria like this, okay, so they are circular chromosome. Okay, and they have additional DNA circular. This is what we call the plasmid, and this is the chromosome. So they have double DNA. Okay. And plasmid usually carry resistant gene, so they're able to be resistant against antibiotic, for example. And this is the one that usually transfer from one bacteria to another bacteria using this pili. So this is the one that's usually transferring into this new bacteria. So these bacteria then become resistant against antibiotics, for example. Ribosomes, again, bacteria have smaller ribosomes, 7S, compared to the eukaryotic ribosome. Again, most of them are heterotroph. They're unable to produce their own food, therefore they have to take the food from other organisms. So many of them is become parasite to other organisms, including humans and animals. Only few of them autotroph. They're able to produce their own food. Mostly this is free living organism or free living bacteria. How they reproduce? They're using what we call the binary fission. Okay, so they are doubling every time. So different bacteria doubles in different time. For example, maybe some bacteria double within 1 minute. Some bacteria double after 20 minutes, and etc. This is what we call the doubling time. Again, they do not reproduce sexually. Okay, they're able to actually take the gene or DNA through several process. Okay, transformation, take the gene from the environment, or transduction, which is take the gene from viruses. And again, remember, virus that infect bacteria is called the bacteriophage. And then the last one is through conjugation, which is transferring the gene between one bacteria to another bacteria using this bridge, using this pili or pilus. This is illustrations of three different recombinations or transformation of genes. The first one is transformation over here. Is taken from environment. So this is, let's say, this is DNA. DNA is taken inside and then become part of the DNA of the bacteria. This is what we call the transformation. Or using through the DNA of the viruses. And we already mentioned about the bacteriophage, the virus that infecting bacteria. So they are able to injecting the DNA into this bacteria, and this DNA is become part of bacteria. Okay. And the last one is through conjugation, which is from one bacteria to another bacteria. The one that give the DNA is called positive, okay, F positive, and the one that receive it is called the negative bacteria. And again, the one that they transfer mostly plasmid. So this is plasmid over here. And this is the chromosome. So plasmid that will be transferred to this and then become part of this F negative bacteria. Okay, so this is the three different way for genetic recommendations in bacteria. Again, transformations, we already mentioned that from environment become part of this bacteria chromosome. And actually, we able to create this transformation by putting, for example, DNA of human. Let's say this is the insulin DNA that inserted into the bacterial chromosome. And what happened? The insulin gene over here will be used by bacteria to produce the insulin. Right? So insulin, and then insulin can be harvested. Or there are some bacteria that take the resistant gene from environment, and then when it is part of this bacteria, that bacteria able to produce resistant molecules against antibiotics. So that bacteria become resistant against antibiotic. Okay. And again, like Staphylococcus aureus, it is known as a bacteria that able to take the resistant genes, okay, from the plasmid or from the resistant DNA. And this is the reason why there are some or so many Staphylococcus aureus that actually able to be resistant against antibiotics. And this group is called the MRSA, which is Staphylococcus aureus methicillin resistant, yeah, methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus. So this new type of Staphylococcus, they are very, very resistant to methicillin, including penicillin. And there are also some that really resistant against vancomycin, which is another type of antibiotics. And this group is called the VRSA. Okay, so this is just for information. There are some bacteria, especially in this case, Staphylococcus aureus. This is the one that usually causing the skin infection to us, that they are able to take the resistant gene and become resistant against antibiotics. Transduction. Again, this is through the virus, as this virus give their DNA into the bacteria, and then it's become part of the bacteria. So bacteria that carry the viral gene usually is become more dangerous to human. Example, E. coli, they usually regular bacteria in our large intestine, they usually not causing disease. However, if they carry the viral gene, they can change into very dangerous E. coli that can cause bleeding diarrhea. The same thing with the Clostridium botulinum. This is the one that produce Botox. Okay, botulinum toxin. It is very dangerous to us because it can paralyze our muscle, including the diaphragm. So it's going to be difficult to breathing. And usually people that have this infection might die because of difficulty of breathing. And this Clostridium botulinum, they are not really dangerous. But whenever they receive the gene from a virus, then they become dangerous strain. It's new type of Clostridium that produce Botox, and this Botox can cause paralysis into our muscle cell. The last one is conjugation. Again, this is the transfer of DNA from positive bacteria to the negative bacteria. Again, the one that is transferred, usually plasmid, the smaller DNA, using this pilus. So this is long pilus. This is actually under the electron microscope, okay, the process of conjugation. So again, this is just illustrations how this conjugation happening. So the F positive is called the donor, and they usually transfer this, the plasmid, not really the chromosome. So they transfer this plasmid that has some gene, including resistant gene, into the recipient. And then what happened? The recipient now have the plasmid, and the old one, and the donor also still have the plasmid. So they is transferring this, make this bacteria become a new donor for maybe another bacteria. So this is how they're able to be resistant against some antibiotics very fast, because some bacteria give the resistant gene to other bacteria that is sensitive. So resistant bacteria give the plasmid into the sensitive bacteria. The sensitive bacteria now become very resistant against some antibiotics. This is test for testing the resistancy. And again, if you take microbiology, you might doing this test. Let's say this is actually antibiotic. So this is containing antibiotic. You see over here, this is actually bacteria. This is the bacteria culture. Okay, so when you put the antibiotic this on this growing bacteria, what happened? Some bacteria will be die. So you see this over here? This is a clear zone. This is actually the zone where the bacteria being killed by these antibiotics. So this antibiotic killing. And this one over here also killing bacteria. This one killing but smaller area. This one killing a little bit wider area. But look at this one, two, three. What happened? You don't see any clear zone. It means that this bacteria over here is actually resistant against this one, two, three antibiotics. So they are not being killed by these three antibiotics. I don't know what antibiotic they use, but you can actually testing different type antibiotic. Maybe this is penicillin, vancomycin, streptomycin, tetracycline, and etc. So if you take microbiology class, usually we'll do this testing. Okay, I did some testing with my students before. So it's very neat. It's a very neat experiment. Now, this is some examples of disease that caused by bacteria. In the old time, there is a disease called the plague. It's really, really bad. It's killing almost half of the European population. This plague is actually caused by bacteria. It's called the Yersinia pestis. So Yersinia pestis is a gram-negative bacteria that causing this plague. It's very bad. So the name of bacteria is called the Yersinia pestis. This is the causative agent of plague. Okay, the next one is diarrhea. I mentioned before, E. coli, they usually okay. It's not really a problem to us, but sometimes they become more dangerous because they carry some resistant gene. So E. coli, this group over here, produce a toxin. It's called the Shiga toxin, and it is dangerous, causing the bloody diarrhea. It's a can be fatal to some people. So this bloody diarrhea is actually caused by the E. coli, Escherichia coli, which is the normal bacteria that live in our gut, especially large intestine. Another one is the one that caused by bacteria called the Borrelia burgdorferi, and this disease is called the Lyme disease. And this usually carried by a special tick. So the Lyme disease is spread by a tick here over here. And usually, if someone live in the wood, okay, they might get this Lyme disease. This is the symptom or the sign of Lyme disease. You see this bull eyes kind of, rash on the body. This is actually symptom or sign of the Lyme disease. And this is again caused by Borrelia burgdorferi is transferred by tick. So if the tick bite your skin, that it can cause this Lyme disease. This is usually attacking, our joint. We feel difficult to move our joint on the neck, for example, and some uh, body temperature, fever. Uh, Tuberculosis or TB, it is caused by specific bacteria. It's called the Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Okay, so this is actually attacking our tissue, especially the lung tissue. So this one usually, is chronic disease. And we can test whether you carry this bacteria or not in your body using the TB skin test. So if you are positive, then you will have bumpy skin over here after the test. This is called the TB skin test to know whether you carry Mycobacterium bacteria or not. It doesn't mean that you have the disease. Sometimes some people that carry this don't really have the sign and symptom of the disease, but they have the bacteria in their body. Some other impact, like for example, many bacteria like Streptococcus sobrinus, they can cause problem, yeah, dental problem over here. Okay, dental caries or tooth decay. Peptic ulcer, we already mentioned about Helicobacter pylori. This is the one that causing peptic ulcer, which is, damage in the wall of the stomach. Immunization or vaccination. So a good thing now, in the medicines they created weaker bacteria to be infected into human in order to create the active, immunity. Remember last time we talked about the active, immunity. In this case, this is artificial active immunity by injecting the weaker type of bacteria or viruses. And these vaccinations, show that it is slowing the spread of some infectious disease, communicable disease. And this is helping community actually. Yes, some people that do not take vaccination is actually protected by people that actually have immunizations. This is what we call the herd. If you have here this herd immunity. Okay, this is the immunity to the community that is provided by some people, let's say maybe 70, 80% people in the community is actually get vaccinated. Yeah, then the 20% of community of people in the community that do not have immunization will be protected by actually this 80% of people. And this is again what we call the herd immunity. I mentioned before that most of bacteria, they are actually beneficial. They are decomposer. They decompose dead material. Okay, so they are mostly decomposer. And they can also fix some material like nitrogen from air to be given to the plant. So they are fixator. And they can also use for some biotechnology, like in the food production, making cheese, making beer, making bread, for example, wine, yogurt. So this is actually helped by the microorganisms. So this is the food production using microorganisms. And they can also use to create a medicine or some chemicals like insulin, for example, for people that have diabetes, especially type 1 diabetes. So using bacteria to create the insulin. How they do that? So the scientists is actually put the insulin gene from normal human into the bacteria and then put it in the lab. And then from that, this bacteria that carry our insulin gene will be reproduced. Every time they reproduce, they will produce the insulin. And the insulin can be harvested, eh? And then can be used by people that have diabetic. Also, many bacteria can be used to clean environment. This is called the bioremediation. Like for example, during the Exxon Valdez oil spill, to clean this area, they actually uh, spread, put uh, bacteria that able to decompose lipids or fat. The one that actually they eat lipids, they eat the oil and then can clean this area. Okay, so this is what we call the bioremediation. Bio mean living, remediation mean clean. So cleaning environment using living thing, in this case using bacteria. I think that's all. So I'll see you again in the classroom. Goodbye.